Well, hello. So I'm going to show you how to do my Joyful Road hat. I'm going to make mine slouchy, but you don't have to. You can make it shorter and not have it slouchy if that's how you'd like. And this is what the stitch looks like. And it's a 6-row pattern, but it's 6 easy rows. And you can tell by looking which one you're on, because this is one of the rows right here. And then this, which it's hard to see, but here you can see it from here to here is the other row. Here to here is the other row. So this row, that row, and you can tell by looking back which row you'd finished on. Okay, so it's pretty actually easy to do. I have a curvy wave brim here. So the yarn that I'm using is King Cole Riot Chunky. And I usually have little tags, except when I'm working on a round hat or something like that. I often write right on the label or attach it to the label. So I've got the name of the stitch and what's in it. And that way I'm not going to forget what I'm doing. So the Riot Chunky is a chunky yarn. It's number 5 yarn. It's wool and acrylic. It's 30% wool, 70% acrylic. So this is it, and this color is called denim, and it's a bunch of different colors of blue. Okay, so that's the yarn I'm using. And then the loom I'm using is a 5/8 inch gauge Cindywood loom. This one has 42 pegs. Most people will use the 48 peg in the 5/8 inch, but you can use any size hat loom you like. Some people even use a very, very large loom to get a slouchy hat, but for me, and with my small head, this is big enough for me, and it's very slouchy on me too. And so the loom hook I'm going to use is this one, and there are similar ones on Etsy because this company doesn't make these anymore. Okay, so there's everything you need to know. And so I'm going to take you to the brim video, and then we'll get started with the stitch. So as soon as you make the brim, we'll start right into the stitch pattern. So I will see you in a bit. So I'm going to show you how to do a curvy wave brim. So first we're going to make a slip knot. I'm going to put it on the first peg. We're going to take our loom hook, put it into the loop here, and scoop up the yarn. See? Just like that, a loop, and tighten it at the back. There. And then we're just going to put this loop behind the next peg, take the working yarn, put it through, and snug it up. Behind the next peg, take the working yarn, and snug it up. Behind the next peg, working yarn, snug it up. And you're just going to do that all the way around the loom. Just like that. And you can snug it up in one motion. I just have my kind of system here, and I just give it 3 tugs and it gets the right tightness. But whichever way works for you. You don't want it so tight you can't knit it over, but you do want it snug so your loops look nice. Okay, and I will just put you on pause, and I will meet you up close to the end of this cast on. Okay, so here we are close to the end, and I'm going to do the last peg here, and then I'm just going to take the yarn and put it over, and then I'm going to knit it over. Had trouble finding that loom hook. And if it's tight, you can just put them over one at a time. There. Okay, and that's already just a stitch on there. So we're going to now do a row of U-knit. So we put the yarn over the peg and just knit it over all the way around. So I will put you on pause again and we will meet up near the end of the row. Okay, so I'm just nearing the end of the row now. Last peg, and then we're going to do a row of purl. So I'm going to go on the first loop and take the working yarn, put it through this loop, and pull up the working yarn and put it on the peg. Oop. Okay, so hook in here, take the working yarn, scoop it up, go up, and just put it on the peg. So one row of purl, and there's lots of videos on how to do a purl stitch. Okay, so I'll meet you up when we get all the way around again. Okay, so I'm just about to do the last peg in the row, and there's the purl. Okay, now we're going to be doing the brim, and the brim is a row of owl eye, a row of purl, a row of owl eye, a row of purl. Just keep repeating that. So to start the owl eye row, you do a U wrap over the first peg, and you come back around, wrap it, and wrap the second peg, and keep it loose, and knit it over. Whatever peg you're on is peg 1, wrap peg 1 and 2 like that, and knit it off. And I have lots of videos on owl eye. Okay, on peg 1, in front of peg 1 and 2, front of peg 1, 1 and 2, and you just keep going all the way around the loom. Okay, so I will see you again when we get near the end of the row. Okay, and I'm just finishing off the row here. And then you come, and then you give this its second wrap because you're at the end of the row, and you just wrap it. And then the first one is a purl, and you do your row of purl. So that's how you do it. And then when you get all around and you finish the purl, you do the wrap on for the first owl eye, and then come around and wrap it a second time to continue around. And you just keep going until you get the length that you want. And then you just start in with the stitch you're going to do with the hat. So I'm going to finish the brim, and we'll see you in a while. Okay, so now we're ready to go into the stitch. So as soon as you've done the brim, we start this stitch pattern here. And so I'm at a place where I can do that stitch pattern. So the first thing we do here, oh, where is that? Hold on a sec. Okay. Now the first stitch we do is roses and chains, and if you need to look at it, I do have the roses and chains stitch on my channel, but here's how we do that. We go over the peg, knit it over, come back, knit it over again, and then come back, and knit it over. Okay, so I think we're a little bit too zoomed in here. There, that's better. Okay, so it's done on one peg. So we come over in a U-wrap, we come back over. I'm sorry that it's so blue and this loom is blue, but it's the only loom I have here with me since I moved here, and I will have some other colors in this loom soon. Okay, and then back again. Okay, I'll get really close so you can see it. So we go over in a U-wrap, we come directly back in a U-wrap, and then back again. Go over it, come back over front again, and back over again. Pretty easy stitch. Over, back, over again, over, back, over again, over this way, and over this way. Roses and chain stitch, so need to look at it more. I have stitch video of this stitch. And it goes pretty fast. So this is row 1. It's a 6-row pattern. But there's only 2 stitches in a 6-row pattern, so it's how they're combined. Okay, it's a lot easier than you're probably thinking it's going to be. Okay, so this is all there is to it. You go over into U-wrap, come back again, and then come back over into U-wrap this way. So U-wrap the way you're going, U-wrap backwards the way you came from, and U-wrap back again in front the way you're going. Okay, very easy stitch. So I'm just going to put you on pause, get to the end of the row, and we'll be ready to do row 2. Okay, well, I'm almost at the end of the row and the yarn is cooperating now. It's a lighter color, easier to see. So over in the U-wrap, going the other way, and then coming back this way, doing roses and chains. This, like this. And then we're ready to start the next stitch. Okay, so the start of row 2. And row 2 is Juniper Stitch, and that's an easy stitch too. You go over the peg in a U-wrap, come back around and wrap it again. So now you have 3 strands on here. 2 of the strands are the working yarn. And we take the 2 bottom strands and knit them over the top, holding on to the yarn. So we wrap it, we come back around, wrap it again, and take the 2 bottom over the top. Wrap it, come around, wrap it again, take the 2 bottom strands over the top. Just like this, very easy to do. You control the tension because you're the one holding the working yarn. So that's all there is to it. Around it again, 2 bottom ones over the top. 2 bottom over the top, 2 bottom over the top. So that's all there is to row 2. This stitch is even faster to do than roses and chains. and you end up with knitting 2 pieces of yarn over. Okay, so again, you go over again, knit the 2 bottom over the top, Juniper Stitch. I have a video of Juniper Stitch, more than one video of Juniper Stitch, but I have a stitch video of it. Okay, so I'll meet you up when we're finished, and we'll start row 3. Okay, so I'm doing the last stitch here of Juniper Stitch, and we're ready to start the row 3. Now row 3 is roses and chains again. So on the first set of 3, it's roses and chains, juniper, and then roses and chains. So roses and chains again is over, back over this way, and back over this way again. Okay. So the first set is roses and chains, juniper, roses and chains. Then row 4, 5, and 6 are all juniper stitch. Okay. So here's your juniper stitch, is this one going like this. There's your 3 rows, 1, 2, 3. And then here's the 3 rows of this stitch. So roses and chains here with juniper creates this kind of a pattern that we have here. Where's the best place to see that? Right, maybe here. You have this pattern here. Coming up there. And that's what really sets these rows. Okay, so you actually know how to do it now. You've got your 6-row pattern. So you can just go ahead. I showed you row 1, 2, and 3, and row 4, 5, and 6 are all juniper. And that's all there is to getting a pattern that looks like this. They're very, very easy stitches. So I'm almost where I'm going to be. I'm doing 10 inches, and I'll be ready to close off the crown, and I will link you to the video to close off the crown. So you want to end not on a Juniper row, but you want to end on a roses and chain row when you're ready to close it off, just because it is a tighter stitch. So you'll you'll do the roses and chains, and it'll be just like you started here, because here you had the brim and we went right into the roses and chains, and it's nice and smooth here. So end there, and then you're just going to do a couple rows of E-wrap before we do the brim. I usually like to do about 3, but you really have to do at least 1. With this kind of a flat stitch showing here, you might be okay with just 1. But we will, you'll decide how long you want it, and you'll end just before we're going to do the brim, and then just do a few rows of E-wrap, and then we will be closing it off. So I will finish this up and do my few rows of E-wrap after I do the pattern enough times, and then we'll meet up, and we will close it off, and then we will look at it after. So I'll take you to the bind off video next. Okay, so we're going to do a reduced brim on the hat. And so the first thing we do, and I've already done this, of course, is done the 1 row of E-wrap. So you can do this not just with this hat, but with any hat that you have that you want to do a reduced brim, so that it's not bulky, so it lays flatter, and it works especially nice on slouch hats. So whenever you do that, always do a row of E-wrap just before you start, no matter what stitch you are doing. And the reason for that is E-wrap is nice and loose, so it makes it easier to move stitches over. Okay, so that's the reason for that. So you do the row of E-wrap, and then we're going to start moving stitches to reduce. And it's a very easy reduction to get a flatter brim. We're going to count every 4 pegs, 1, 2, 3, 4, And on the 4th peg, we're just going to take it off the loom and then move it over to the peg before. So now you have 2 stitches on the loom. And number 4 is blank. And then you go 1, 2, 3, 4 again. You take the loom off, or the stitch off, and put it on the peg before. So now if we go from the beginning, we got 1, 2 pieces on here and a blank peg, 1, 2 pieces on here and a blank peg. And you're going to do that all the way around the loom. Every 4th, you're going to be moving over to the 3rd. When you get to the end, if it's not equally divisible, you'll have some extra loops with thread on, yarn on, that you can't move over, and that's okay. Leave them on. It's better to leave them on than to reduce too much. So I'll meet you back when we get all the way and that we've reduced by moving every 4th peg onto the 3rd. So we'll see you in a few. Okay, so I've gone all the way around now and I've moved them all over, and mine did turn out fairly even. I have just 3 here instead of 2. So that's all because it's not evenly divisible. Okay, so now what we're going to do is do another round of E-wrap. And how you do that is you E-wrap all the pegs that have yarn on them, knit them over, and with this one we take both loops over, then go behind any empty pegs and E-wrap the pegs that have yarn on them, taking the 2 off, skipping by going behind the empty peg and then just E-wrapping. Okay, so you just do that all the way around the loom, and I will see you back at the beginning. Okay, so I've E-wrapped around the loom, and now we're going to do our next reduction. So we have the 3 pieces of yarn that are on the 3 pegs, and then on either side pegs with no yarn. So we're always going to be working with the ones that have yarn on them, and you're going to go 1, 2, 3, and you're going to take the yarn from number 2 now and move it over to number 1. And then on the next 3 peg grouping, you're going to do the same thing. Now on the first one, I had 4 yarns. So here, I'm going to just ignore the extra yarn here. And on 2, I'm just going to move it over to 1, like that. Okay, so you just go all the way around, taking the yarn from number 2 and putting it on number 1. It's a little awkward for me. And I'll meet you up when we have that all done. Okay, now that you've done that, you have yarn on every 2nd peg. So now we just E-wrap around, doing the same thing, going behind the pegs with no yarn and E-wrapping the pegs with yarn. Taking both loops over, going behind the ones with no yarn, and just E-wrapping. So I'll see you when you have that done. Okay, so you finished, and then all we're going to do now is take this yarn and put it around the loom, and then another half. We just want to make sure we have it long enough, and cut it, because we're all reduced, and now we're just going to take it off the loom. Whoops. That off there. So you just take a needle. You can use your loom hook also if you want. You don't have to have a needle. And I'm just going to thread the needle with the yarn. There, got it this time. There we go. And then all you're going to do is go around the loom and just scoop up that yarn and get it inside this. So we go up and we just scoop up that loop. Okay, so I will just meet you up when we've scooped up all the loops. Okay, and then just be sure you've picked up every single loop, and then go back into the first loop that you started with. Then you can just take your needle off. At this point, I'm just going to cut this a little bit smaller so it's easier to work with, and then take my loom hook, and I'm just going to start popping all these off the loom. You can even do it with your fingers. There, and it's off the loom. And then at this point, all we're going to be doing is drawing in the hat. So just draw it in a little ways, and then you're going to take the yarn and put it to the inside of the hat, although the inside of this hat looks really good too, just as good as the outside. Okay, and then you're just going to pull it closed until you get it all the way closed. Nice and tight. Now what I do is I hold it tight, and I usually go in and check and make sure that I've drawn it up evenly, and you can see that. So just a nice flattened brim. But now we can put the needle back on, cut this shorter again. Just save enough to sew it up and weave it in. And thread your needle. Okay, now I want to make sure that this is nice and tight so that we don't end up with a hole anywhere. And then I'm just going to put this through a couple of the yarns and make a knot. And I got that tail stuck in there. There we go. Just make a nice tight knot to hold it closed. And then you can see where the center was right there. And then I'm just going to sew around it. Now, if you were sure this was always going to be the inside of the hat, you could even just sew it across. But I'm going to sew around to keep it neat, for the reason that I might be using this side too. This hat is very nicely reversible, but it gives you that option. And I'm just going to sew around. And every once in a while, I'm just going to put a little knot on it. There, get that working iron out of there and sewing around here. And then I'm I'm just going to do another knot. I just wouldn't want it to ever come undone. And when you're sure you have the hat all very securely sewn, you just do another little knot and you are done. There we go. And then you can weave in the end of the yarn. I'm not going to bother doing that now, just to keep it there. Turn the hat to the other side, and there you go. You have a nice flat brim. See? Just flattens it out. It has a really nice little shape to it. If you laid it down like this, you can just see how nice and flat it is. Just an easy way to reduce your brim. And it's really great on slouchy hats. Okay, so here I am with the finished beanie, all stretched out every way. And there it is. It's a nice slouch hat. You can wear it like that or like that. Some people like to wear it straight out, and then some people like to slouch it back a bit. So you can wear it all kinds of ways. And then the other thing that I like about it is because I've done this brim. Looks really good on this other side, and so I can wear my hat as a slouchy hat or as a beanie. Works both ways. And because we did that the back so that it was flat, you can see how nice and flat it is. It has that kind of a, hard to see on this color, but it has that star shape. It's a nice flat hat. I really like the pattern. If you do it in solid, it looks just as good as it does here. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, bye.